Hi, my name is Michelle Beckster. I'm an associate attorney here at the law office of Beltran, Brito, Casamayor.
Hi, I'm Brito, managing partner of Beltran, Brito, Casamayor here in Miami. And today, Michelle, the topic is student visas.
F1 student visas.
F1's very important distinction. We're going to be discussing F1 versus discussing M1. M1s are more for vocational programs. F1s, Michelle, are more for academic programs. Okay.
Right. So what type of academic programs does that include? University programs, language programs, sometimes.
What happens if I don't know English? If I don't know English, you could study English. That's considered an institution that's sufficient typically for an F1 visa. Now let's talk about this. How do I know if a university or if a college can go ahead and issue an F1 visa? How would we know this?
Right. Really important to speak to the school, speak to the university, find out a few things. There's a few important considerations, right? Number one is, do they have a program that allows you to apply for an F1 visa? What does that include?
How would you know? How would you know so that program needs to be registered in a system? Okay, the system is the Student Exchange Visa, International Student Visa System, right? So that's called SEVIS system. Okay, so that needs to be registered in the SEVIS system. The school has to be approved by SEVIS and authorized to issue a document called an I-20 document. Okay.
Right. So once you've established that they do offer the I-20 and they are registered in the SEVIS system, it's really important to consider, do you have the financial means to support yourself here in the United States while you're studying?
Why do you need that? Why do you need to show that, right? Because you're not allowed to work. You should be in a full-time program. You're studying full-time. You do not have work authorization in the U.S., and you need to demonstrate that you're not going to be a public charge here. So how can people demonstrate that they have the financial means, Michelle?
You can show your bank account balance, things like that. There's options if you don't personally. You can have an affidavit from someone else, someone you know, a family member,
notarized statement, a letter, a notarized statement.
Right.
Basically, somebody saying like, I will be supporting the student during their study program for the next 4 years. Here's bank account statements. Here's evidence that I have financial means. This could be, I'm going to say, U.S. bank accounts, a U.S. person. This could be somebody outside of the U.S. This could be a family member. This could be a friend. Okay, it varies, but that person is stating and really giving an affidavit stating that they are going to be responsible for you financially, and they'll support you. Okay.
Right. Okay, so then the third point is to show that you don't have the intent to move here to the United States. So you don't have immigrant intent, right?
So immigrant intent, why do most visas get denied at consulates? I'm going to say kind of a little bit of a catch-all. It's basically immigrant intent. There's a couple of dual intent visas out there. F1 visa is not one of them. When you're coming here to study in the United States, you need to show that you have sufficient ties to your home country and that you will not be you will actually be returning to your home country and not be immigrating to the United States after your F1 visa. This is my recommendation, is to be able to demonstrate things like property, bank accounts, family ties, sufficient, that I actually...
Or a job that's waiting for you.
A job that's a great one. A job that's waiting for you. Maybe I'm an owner of a company abroad. This is, different ways to demonstrate that I truly have the intention to return to my home country.
Right, to show that once you finish your study program here in the United States, you do have sufficient ties to show that you're planning on going back home to your home country.
And that comes to the point that really, if we're, it's going to be... There's really two ways to go about this, right, Michelle? I ventured the United States on a valid, let's just say, B1, B2 visa.
Your tourist visa, right?
My tourist visa. I'm here in the U.S. I decided to visit universities. I really like it. I want to go ahead and study in the U.S. And then I've decided to actually do one of two things. A change of status from tourist to F1 while you're here in the U.S., or I might go ahead and obtain my I-20, my documentation demonstrating I have the financial means, I have my sufficient family ties, I have no intention to immigrate to the United States, and then I go to the U.S. consulate, make an appointment, go ahead and get the actual visa stamped in my passport. So there's really two ways to go about it. Going to the consulate, having the visa issued directly, you still have to demonstrate all those items. You still have to have the I-20, the financial means, and you still have to have obviously the intent to not immigrate to the United States in the future. Or you could do it as a change of status here in the U.S. If you do it as a change of status here in the U.S., understand that it will take some time. Okay,
Right.
it is a process that I recommend should not be registered with the school. If your intention is to actually do everything over here as a change of status, do not register with any study program until you've been how long, Michelle?
Right. So a little hypothetical. You're
Yeah.
you're here in the United States, right? You come into the United States on your tourist visa, your B1, B2. You need to wait 90 days before you apply for.
Why
any
is that? Why do you
program
need to wait 90 days?
to show you didn't have immigrant intent, right?
Right.
To show
Right.
that
Or-
you're applying for this.
Or that your
program.
intent when you entered as a tourist was actually tourism, and you actually wanted your intention was being tourism. After 90 days, this presumption of intent kind of dissipates, and I'm able to go ahead and file a change of status. Usually, the schools are really in tune with this and with the changes in U.S. immigration law. So the schools will go ahead and advise you of this. Typically, they'll tell you if you're going to do a change of status here, we don't recommend that you register until that date. This is something that I've heard frequently from institutions, from universities as well, from their CVIS officer within the institution. What happens then? I went ahead, I registered at school, I got the I-20. I paid the CVIS fee. I have all my documentation in order. I filed the change of status. So the change of status is then filed. But my tourist status, what happened to my tourist status, Michelle?
Right, that's expiring soon,
Yeah.
right? So what's really important is that not only do you file this change of status from your tourist visa to the student, the F1 visa, but that you are also simultaneously in a separate extending your tourist visa, and so that you can continue to keep lawful status while you're here in the United States.
And really, the issue is why? That doesn't even make sense, right? Yeah. I'm going to extend my tourist when I already filed the change of status. Well, starting April 2017, USCIS requires you to do that. And why do they require you to do that? Is because they are taking a good amount of time. I'm going to say probably upwards of 9 months. Right. To approve a change of status to student status here in the U.S. to an F1, to F1 status. So what happens is, obviously, you entered as a tourist. Your tourist status, your I-94 expired after 6 months, typically. Okay. If you did not file an extension, USCIS says, well, you need to demonstrate that within 30 days of the start date of your program, you had legal status in the U.S. up through that time. And if you do not demonstrate that, we will deny the change of status. So it's of paramount importance, really, to make sure that you simultaneously file an extension of your tourist status. You're not going to say that you're here, you want to be a tourist for another 6 months. You're going to tell them the truth. I filed a change of status to F1. Here's a copy of the receipt. Here's a copy of all that information. And as required by current USCIS policy, I am filing an extension of my tourist status as well. That may happen more than once. So you may have to do that even twice, and we've seen that have to happen a few times to make sure that that person preserves their non-immigrant status parallel to waiting for that change of status to be approved to F1.
Right, that's, I think, the key here, especially because that's a change that was recently made and something that not all schools are aware of at this point.
Yeah, it's a problem. The information that some schools are given, maybe because they had their particular older way of doing things. Now, whenever there's a new policy change, that starts happening immediately with USCIS. And maybe the schools take a while to go ahead and actually inform the students. And because of this, we've been giving many consultations to individuals that did this change with the school or did this change on their own and did not file an extension. What's been happening? They've been denying the student visa. What happens at that point? Retroactively, your tourist status ended, who knows, 6 months ago, 9 months ago.
9 months ago.
9 months ago. You've been out of status that entire time. That's how they consider it. That is a major problem because it might preclude you from applying for another visa, for applying for a green card, from even being able to enter the U.S. again. So if I suggest having a consultation with an attorney if you're doing it yourself, or if you're going to do it through the school, make sure you verify that what the school is telling you is actually accurate information.
Right, so just to maintain your status while you're waiting on that decision for that change of status to student visa.
It's essential. It's essential.
Okay, so options of coming with your spouse, with your children, is that a possibility?
Definitely, children under the age of 21 are eligible. Spouses obviously are eligible for what's called F2 visas. That individual cannot work in the United States. The F1 cannot work. The F2 definitely cannot work here in the United States, but they can accompany the F1 here in the U.S.
And they can study, your children can study?
They can. That's fine.
Okay. And then what about OPT?
Yeah. So optional practical training, right? So OPT, typically when a study program is culminated in a degree, a diploma, it's finished. It could be let's use a 4-year degree as an example, a typical university degree. You're going to be typically, you have to check with your program and with your advisor, but typically you are eligible for what's called OPT. This is work authorization in the U.S. It's not full-blown open work authorization. I could do whatever I want.
It's supposed to be related to whatever you studied in school.
It is. It needs to be. It needs to be. A similar, at least similar type of course. So whatever your course of study is, it needs to at least be connected some way. Whenever that actual work authorization document is approved, you have 90 days to demonstrate to the school. Okay, and they need to update the CVIS system that you've actually found a job in your area. And this is an important thing, because if you do not find a job within those 90 days and they do not report that in the CVIS system, technically that work authorization is no longer valid and you're out of status and you need to depart the U.S. So just keep that in mind.
The good thing is, though, with many 4-year programs, of course it depends on the program, but you can be given up to 12 months to study a lot of times.
Yes.
So that gives you, to work.
To work, correct. To work. So it's fantastic. You'll have an entire. That was the point and the purpose of an OPT. It's like, I'm now going to apply my degree knowledge in the workforce. I have work authorization, and then this also leads to many opportunities. You find a company you're working with, you might be eligible for an H-1B visa in the future, for example, maybe a different work visa, and this is a time of opportunity to find a job as well, if your intention is to continue working in the U.S. in the future.
There's been a lot of changes lately with the grace period.
Sure.
Can you explain a little bit about what the grace period is and how it's worked now? How it works now that the changes have been made?
So when your program ends, if you decide not to do an OPT, you have a 60-day grace period for an F1. Typically, again, I always recommend checking in with the school, making sure that the program allows it. But let's assume it does. You have a 60-day grace period to either depart the United States or enter into another status or obtain an OPT. Okay. So what happens after OPT and your work authorization expires in 12 months? That 60-day grace period is still in play, and you still have 60 days after that OPT to go ahead and make a decision, either change into another study program, either go into a work visa, or depart the United States, as many people do.
A really important part is that if you stop studying, let's say you're enrolled in a program and you decide you no longer want to study, what happens with that grace period?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is there's no grace period. That is a major change, right?
So you start accruing unlawful status the day you stop studying.
And I would say the day you stop studying, and that they notify the CV, within CVIS and make an annotation. But let's assume, for our purposes, that is the day you stop studying. That's it. Okay, you need to depart the U.S. You need to figure out what you're going to do. They're getting much tougher with this particular issue with student visas. This is a recent, month, 30 days ago policy change, and where they are recognizing that this is now, you are accruing unlawful presence the moment you stop studying. Okay. Anything else for F1s?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Always, you could follow us at our social media at Beltran Brito or through our website, beltranbrito.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.